Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. It's Saturday morning. It means it's time for the At Home Show. Hey, we're here for you, and we're coming to you from the Green Room Studios here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. Welcome in, everybody. It's a Saturday morning tradition to have the At Home Show. Is that a little bit cliche?
We're going to get more into cliches as the program goes along, but perhaps.
Well, it could be. But, you know, what is not a cliche is our show. You can interact. You can ask us questions on Facebook. You can ask us questions on YouTube. There are multiple feeds going out there. Share them for everybody because we're here for you.
There's so many different ways to reach us. It takes 3 people in studio to keep up with all of them.
At least 3 people in studio to keep
now,
up.
Tyler over there is just one of them. On the other end of the studio, we've got Caroline Gant.
Oh.
And a special guest today, we've got Ben Trest. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
But before
do the
we
Queen way. The Queen way.
Before we do the go around the studio, we're going to talk a little bit about the weather and refresh that here so we can get an accurate temperature. Currently 73 degrees here at Bates Nursery Weather Station, here live from the Green Room. And, of course, today is Saturday. And we're looking at a really nice day today, 91 degrees. As we wind down August, hard to believe it is coming to an end so soon. Tomorrow, a bit warmer, but actually just more of the same. We've got partly cloudy conditions. The threat of scattered or isolated thunderstorms, it's really every day. They just kind of put them in on right now they're showing them for today, possibly Monday and Tuesday, possibly. As we wind up August, though, there's not a hint of it. 89 degrees and sunny conditions. And going into Thursday, as we begin September, believe it or not, should be mostly sunny conditions. And there's a couple more references of isolated thunderstorms next weekend. It doesn't really mean anything because currently it is 73 degrees here. I'll just take a quick look at the radar and you'll see it's really nothing that shows anywhere near us. We're pretty much in the clear precept, but the nature of the way these things work is that they just seem to bloom out of nowhere. And
bloom? How accurate could that be for the At Home Show? Could I make a special request? Can we look at the 12-hour for today, the 12-hour forecast?
The 12-hour, the hourly forecast.
The hourly forecast. I'm kind of concerned about something that's happening around 6 o'clock.
Well, we'll see what we get here. 9, 10, 11, 12. So you tell me what 6 o'clock says. It's partly cloudy. What it looks like.
Okay.
80. Okay. So you should be good, Josh. I don't know what you got going on, but
there's a football game
in case
tonight.
You need an hourly, hour level forecast, we provide that for you here on the At Home Show.
How about Williamsport, Pennsylvania, David? Because we have a team. There is a Little League team from Nolensville, Tennessee, playing for the U.S. Championship against the Hawaii team, which is juggernaut. They went down 13-1 the other day, but they've got a chance at redemption. But that Hawaii team, because you have to say all the vowels, right? Hawaii.
Hawaii is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know from which side of the island, if they're from
it'd be the other side anywhere you go. So
it's the other side, bro. You know that. Anyway, we'll welcome you into the At Home Show.
Go Nolensville.
We tend to talk about landscaping and home improvement.
Or whatever we want to.
And we do so by answering or attempting to answer the questions that you find viewers and listeners. I mean, you could just listen to us. And perhaps, but you know, there's always enough nice looking stuff in the studio here. We've got we've got some lavender down there in front. It looks like
got some peppers,
catmint.
Cat mint is Nepeta. Sorry, that is catmint, and got some conifers up behind, and also some ornamental grass. Which grass is that, Tyler? Do you know? Is that
Caroline
heavy metal?
looked it up the other day. If it's some
It's prairie.
Prairie dog.
No,
Prairie fire,
Prairie Winds
Poofy.
Apache
Prairie
Rose.
prairie wind. That's a really
Apache
nice
rose.
fastigate grower.
What?
So
I'm a
Don't you
fan.
use bad words.
I'll say whatever I want to say, Josh.
That's right.
You just worry about that. Anyway, welcome in Caroline and Ben, and let's just jump right into the questions and see
Okay.
where it takes us. How
All
about
right.
that?
Let's see. Let's start with a hydrangea question today. Ooh, starting
Well,
strong.
that's-
Ben, are
well,
you
that
ready?
just changed.
My pink hydrangeas have brown spots on the leaves.
Uh-oh.
What is the best fungicide?
Sure. I mean, you could use a copper fungicide. This is going to be just a black spot, usually related to rain, overhead water, humidity. This late in the season, I'm usually not treating them because those leaves are going to fall off. I would just make sure to get those leaves out of the bed. If you start seeing black spots next year, late spring, summer, then maybe I would consider a fungicide. But probably this late in the year, I don't think it would be worth the money.
Yeah, and frankly, it's not going to be that long. At least, within a couple of months, we're going to start seeing foliage begin to shed off. And there's no health risk to the plant. It's just a common occurrence, particularly as we wind down towards the end of summer.
Sure. And I mean, make sure our irrigation's not just absolutely hitting the leaves of those hydrangeas. They start pushing out new growth. It's most likely going to be clean. So, just a little bit of maintenance going into the winter should be fine next year.
Lovely.
All right.
Wow, you nailed that question. Get it. All right, are you ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
How to transplant tulip poplar left by the birds.
Seedlings, I
Little
guess. Yeah, little
seedlings.
seedlings. I mean, that should be easy. Stick them in a 1 gallon pot. Dig them up, stick them in a 1 gallon pot, and wait for them to root in.
Yeah, depending on how big they are, you might want to wait and transplant them mid-November, unless you're in a rush to do something with them. Or if they're really small, you might be able to easily get enough soil where you're not really going to have any transplant shock. But transplanting them is something you can do. The main thing, if you're going to do it now, and you've got to expose those roots for any period of time, and I'm talking hopefully only seconds, be prepared to have it ready to transplant. Don't dig something out that's alive and growing at any time of year and have those roots exposed to the air where they get dried out. You're gonna really drive down these chances of success if you do that. So be prepared to immediately get it transplanted and watered back in so that you don't have any period of time that's appreciable where those roots have had a chance to desiccate.
There he goes with another dirty word.
There it is. I know Tyler found a sycamore tree
Wow.
here at the nursery wildly growing somewhere, and he's transplanted it back on my potting bench, and it shed its old leaves, but Tyler, have you checked it lately?
I have.
It's got a new leaf growing, and it's so exciting. And I hear my voice while I'm talking.
It was Josh.
Josh,
He pulled it
It
up on
was
his phone.
you're
muted.
trying to throw me
I
off.
heard
No,
it.
I'm
I heard a
I'm-
tiny Caroline.
But you did a great job, and you pulled it up. You had dirt ready to go.
Ben pulled it out of the hydrangea.
Ben pulled it out.
Nestled in with the hydrangea.
Yeah, it was just out of place. Although those are, super vigorous, hardy plants. Naturally, those two plants, your tulip poplar, your sycamore, they are easy seeders. They are easy to grow in tough locations. So
Yep.
it should be an easier one to transplant for sure.
Yeah, but Tyler watered it thoroughly and then didn't have it in direct sun when he potted it up. And
Very
it's-
crucial.
It looked a little bit sad for a minute, but I've been checking on it. Each morning I go say, "Good morning, sycamore tree."
Don't give up on them.
Don't
How
give
long
up
would you
on
leave
them.
it in the container? Would you go through the winter or
Until
go
I start seeing roots come out. Yeah, over the
Okay.
winter, until I start seeing roots come out the bottom.
Because it's liable to grow 4 or 5 feet next year.
Sure.
Yeah, easily.
It'll be a big giant tree one
Yeah, it'll
day.
be ready to go in the ground next, spring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are we ready for our third question?
Certainly.
All right. Pretty fall plants for full shade.
Full shade. That's a difficult one. Fothergilla can grow in shade. It's a great fall color plant. It really doesn't want deep shade, so if it's partial shade, Fothergilla would be a great one for fall color. Native on top of that. You could do something like an Itea. Those would be pretty
Henry's
good for fall
Garnet's
color.
a really nice one.
Do all the parts come with that IKEA thing, or do you have to call back on the website to get it?
That's IKEA, Josh.
Yeah, this is the local.
You're confusing it. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's another native that's great for fall color, and it usually grows on the wood line, so that's a really good one for fall color. And then otherwise, I'm looking for evergreens that have colored leaves, like Osmanthus goshiki has really colorful leaves. Japanese maple, maybe if you get a short one.
My favorite fall plant, and we have one in here, Heuchera, coral bells, and those pretty little dark-leaved ones. They're in front of you guys on that side, the little red leaf. I always plant those in a container in the fall that's in full shade, and it holds its leaves and color through the winter. So, there's two Davids now.
No, there's not.
Oh no,
There's no little David.
That was just me imagining
it's right down
that.
there.
But
But
that's St. John's wort too, right?
St. John's wort is
Yeah.
next door, which I have some growing in full sun, but I know it'll grow in shade as
That,
well.
that brigadoon, that yellow St. John's wort, really prefers a little bit of shade.
But
That'd be a good one.
yeah, those are two great shade plants that I love. And like I said, the Heuchera will hold, at least for me, like I said, I put mine in containers on my porch, so they are covered, but they're full shade. And they hold their color through the winter, so it's a nice, it's a nice look when everything else is dead. And then what I do is I transplant them into the ground in a full shade spot in the spring, and I just have a yard full of Heuchera, and it's amazing.
Now, I've got a question for you, Caroline. Is this a porch that you have these on? Is it a covered where it's enclosed, where it doesn't really get the severe cold weather? It gets
It's
cool,
pretty
but it doesn't
open.
get
It's
cold.
not screened. It's open. It's just the roof is covered, and it's right up
So it
against.
gets a natural protection from the house.
From the
So it's
house.
doesn't get that severe cold like something out in the yard would.
Right. Something out in I was going to say in the woods. I guess it would have some protection in the woods because of the trees, but it does have some coverage on it. So if you were to plant it in ground, although a lot of my Heuchera that's in ground, some seem to be more hardy than others, but like my dark purple ones, they stay up through the winter, and they actually looked amazing in ground through the winter. They were huge and beautiful and looked a little bit spooky because of the dark leaves. So it's my favorite, and I could talk about it for hours, but anything else, Ben?
I think those are good ones. Yeah, I mean perennials. Heuchera's definitely one of my top colors for shade. You'll get color all the way through fall, probably through winter. Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm a big fan of oak leaf hydrangea
Okay.
for the
Ooh.
red, deep rougey reds.
Yeah, ruby slippers, Ellen Huff. Those will have good reds in the fall.
There's a lot of shade plants out there. Ooh, bleeding heart. That's a good one too.
And
We
we
just keep
do
naming
a
'em.
lot of work to really have a extensively diverse selection of shade plants. And there's people who come out to the garden center can't help but notice we're kind of doing a lot of work in our shade area. And there's a whole structure that has gone up overhead.
Looks
And,
like the infrastructure is up all the way down. Looks good.
all of the
It
on
is.
all of the main part.
Yep.
We've got the little connecting section that has to be taken care of. Hopefully that'll
A little more
happen this week.
fabrication there, yeah.
Yep. So that's all coming along.
A design
So,
change,
we're-
as it were. Change order
oh.
in there and there.
Oh, it's happening. We have to move this big garage door to create a higher header to enter. So it'll be great. You can actually put a tall tree on the cart and push it straight into checkout from the other way.
So
Interesting.
yep, it'll make things. And as we go into the winter months or in more rainy times, we'll have covered shopping over a much larger area of the nursery, continuously dry. So we're looking forward to having that completed and having that to offer everyone. So coming up to a Bates nursery near you.
So
Yeah,
nice.
it's exciting.
So
You
yep,
guys won't
it
have
is
to wear your
exciting. So
rain
what?
suits as
Speaking of
often.
exciting, what other questions do you have, Caroline?
my.
Listen, we have so many exciting questions today. They're so exciting that my phone turned itself off because it was
Oh.
overwhelmed. Here we go. We got a question from Miriam. Good morning, Miriam. Will
Hi,
dwarf
Miriam.
papyrus endure as houseplants for the winter? Any tips? You can grow it as a house plant or overwinter it inside. You just need to make sure it has plenty of sunlight, especially if you had it outdoor in a spot that was getting full sun. I mean, they thrive in a lot of sunlight. So keep it in a window. West-facing window would probably be preferable. And then keep it moist just like you would outside. So I would keep it in a dish of water. It should be fine. It might try to start dying back, but you can just cut those damaged or browning leaves and stems off, and it should be fine.
Did she say papyrus?
Papyrus.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she did. Really cool plant.
Yes.
We get those in. We get a few in the spring. We don't get very many, and they sell like hotcakes. They just go right out that door.
Do you have to keep them wet all the time?
Pretty much. I mean, if they dry out, just taking care of them in the garden center sometimes when it's really hot, and if we have them into the summer, can be, I wouldn't say a nightmare, but a little bit tricky. I usually have to water them twice a day and just make sure they're sitting in water. And they're thirsty. They'll just keep drinking up that water, and I'll have to, refill their saucers, usually in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and then sometimes right before we close. So overnight they're fine, because as soon as they dry out, their little tips on their
They're kind of
plumey
ploofy
jazz
on the
hands,
top,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
like
okay.
a bunch of jazz hands on a stem. They'll start to brown and curl, so it'll get damaged
Not a
pretty
good
quickly.
thing.
But yes, overwinter it, Miriam, and let us know how it goes. I bet it'll be just fine. I know you're great with plants, so.
Caroline Miriam sent us another one at midnight last night.
Was it the hydrangea photo?
Yes.
Did you get it pulled up? I was going to airdrop it to you.
No, I didn't get it pulled up, but it says, is this tree form of vanilla strawberry hydrangea hard to grow or take special care?
No, that's a good full sun, very heat tolerant variety. I mean, with the single trunk ones, I think the only difference is going to be maybe staking it for the first year, maybe even past the first year, just because they do have the tendency to have a heavy top on them. So, but otherwise, nice heavy watering to get it settled in the ground, but very tolerant of full sun to part sun, and good in the heat. So just keep that thing watered through the summer, and should be the same as a limelight shrub. Fairly easy.
And so pretty.
Yeah, very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to, if you've got a tree form type, make sure you're not afraid to do proper pruning on it, because hydrangeas get really top heavy, and when you don't prune them enough, they want to do this flopping thing, and when they flop, it's not the look that you really want to have. So if you'll prune them and encourage more buds to set, the flower size will be smaller and on heavier, thicker stems, and by giving it the resistance to be able to stand up when you get these heavy rains, and it won't flop on you so bad. So that'll help a lot. But it's a common mistake people make in being afraid to trim their hydrangeas, but you need to do it pretty much while they're dormant and preceding the new growth, and you can cut them really hard at that point in time, and that'll help them to have a nice compact growth habit as you move into the growing season next year.
Yeah. And all of our tree forms should pretty much be panicle hydrangeas, so they will be blooming on new woods, so just a little less risk of cutting off any blooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, David, we've had a question about trimming as well, and Kevin from McMinnville is wondering if you would go through trimming a Bradford pear tree.
Well, it's a pretty easy technique. A chainsaw is preferred for the correct trimming, and check your oil, make sure you have the right fuel mix and all of that.
All the safety equipment, yes.
And when you're pruning a Bradford pear, you might even want to dig around the base of the trunk, so that when you trim it, you can prune it below ground level, if at all possible.
Okay.
So you start at the bottom.
Yes.
Start at on that one, you just go ahead and then have a stump grinder come in and grind it out, and hopefully it'll become a.
So you're talking about a horizontal cut below plane of the dirt.
Now, McMinnville is a part of our area that has grown many of the Calderon pears over the years, of which Bradford kind of the original cultivar that was put out there, and I think the word finally has gotten out that this is a tree that should not be grown.
Right.
It was a mistake, and we need to do what we can to rectify it, because much of the damage and the problem has occurred between the hybridization between and the cross pollination between Bradfords and other cultivars like Red Select and those that have cast these seed into the woodland areas. And because of the woodland areas, Josh, are we'd like to have natives in there.
There's a lot of natives from Warren County, though. I mean, they're kind of crazy down there. Always were.
Well, and you'll see in Williamson County in particular how many of these pear seedlings that have come up in the woodland areas and really just destroyed the natural look. So it'll take some real doing to ever recover from that. But the place to start is to stop planting those, and if you've got them, remove them from your landscape.
Yep.
There are a lot of other great choices. None of which are Bradford pears.
Ever.
Never, ever.
Ever.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. So,
Josh, we have one more question on the At Home Show page.
we're from a very important person there. Okay.
Indeed.
Renee wants to know, and she greets you. Good morning. A question for Caroline. When I bring in a succulents like anemonium num num
Oh, nice.
for winter,
I love that one.
Yeah,
you to
that's a
say.
great one.
and I have them in good light, how much cold can they take?
I believe it's aeonium.
And then
Oh, yeah. They can't take, they can take a little bit more cold than like your standard kind of like more mushy succulent. As that's a great word to use. The technical term, one of those mushy succulents.
Squishy.
So squishy. That's more of what I was looking for, but still not quite. So when you think about like string of pearls, those types of succulents, those can't really handle any cold. Now the one that you're bringing in can handle a little bit more cold, but I would bring it in when temperatures at night drop to like 47, 45. Mid 40s is usually my rule of thumb with cacti and succulents, to go ahead and bring them in just to keep them warm. And you never know if that temperature is going to plummet a little bit more and cause it a little bit of damage. They can probably take, I've left some out to below freezing in a covered area, and they were fine. But just to make sure there's no damage and it doesn't get shocked or anything, generally 45 degrees at night is a good rule of thumb to go ahead and bring that little plant in.
Would the humidity affect that?
The humidity would affect it.
So if you have a lower humidity, you would probably bring it in quicker, or?
No, with our high humidity here in Tennessee, it makes stuff, they can't handle the freezing temperatures just as much. If you think about the desert with cacti that grow out there, it does get really cold. I think it'll get into the 20s. I've never lived in the desert before, but because their humidity is not nearly as high as ours, we can't leave ours out to that temperature because ours will freeze a lot quicker and then just die right away. It's sad to watch a succulent go.
They get really squishy and slimy
They
at that
do.
point, don't
I
they?
left one of my favorite succulents out. It was probably about 5 years ago. It was a mother of millions, but it's an easy plant to grow. I still have babies from it, but it was probably about 4 feet tall. It was huge. And I didn't bring it in, and it went down to 42. And I woke up the next morning, and it was just completely flopped over and dead. As soon as they hit a certain temperature, they go fast. It's not a slow death. It's a sad, quick one.
Be mindful of your cacti and your succulents.
And your succulents. Good question, Renee.
Hey, another thing to be mindful of is what you are growing your plants in and what you're trying to grow them in, and obviously, if you're a serious gardener, you want to do your very best, and we want that for you. And so we highly recommend you consider using Earth Mix garden products. Now, Earth Mix garden products have been developed as a wholly organic line of amendments and soils to grow whatever it is you're trying to grow, and those are developed and are mixed and packaged right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to grow in your garden or in your landscape, there's an Earth Mix product that really gives you the very best benefits. And that's really where Earth Mix shines, is that not only is it completely organic, it is an extraordinarily viable growing media. And that happens largely through the supernatural compost that is one of our great products of the Earth Mix line, but also it's an input in several other products down the line. So you get extra mycorrhiza fungi, Josh, both endo and ecto, I might add.
It's good on a cracker.
And you
too.
also get humic acid added to it, and this naturally viable, naturally highly fertile product really does amazing things. So whether you're getting it through Earth Mix Landscape, which is one of our products that we really like to encourage people to use when they're planting, it is a premium soil conditioner. Or if you're planting indoor plants with Progatix I, that's one Cary will recommend to you. Or if you're outdoors, Progatix O. There's a complete line of Earth Mix products. Check them out.
Don't forget Viragra.
Viragra. If you're looking for the ultimate pure worm castings, Viragra is the product to get. So you can check out the entire line at earthmix.net. You can also go over to Find Earthmix tab right in the upper right corner. Click on that, and it'll bring you to a map where it'll show you the entire area that Earthmix is currently sold under, and you just never know. There's more locations coming regularly. Either zoom in to your area or put your address in for turn-by-turn directions and find the location nearest you. So remember this, success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix garden products. And we appreciate you taking a moment to let us talk about this and to increase your chances of success when you're working in your garden. So check it out, and there are, make sure you support all the great folks that are in the Earth Mix network of sellers. A lot of great independent garden centers and other independent businesses that sell that. So check them out and support them.
Absolutely. I was unsuccessful in finding you any further distribution in eastern Idaho, David. I did visit a couple of places, but they said the shipping would probably be a little bit prohibitive.
Well, it's logistics are a part of the cost of
they need it out there,
here.
though. I'm telling you.
So, anyway.
I love Earth Mix. It's
Tyler,
great.
looks like you're getting ready to say something, but I don't know what.
Tyler just caught me dancing on camera.
I did. It's a good feeling. One of our former Bates Nursery colleagues, Sarah, who was a great and wonderful cashier last year, just ran into her yesterday. And she was at Bates not only for the plant selection, but because she said, quote, I have to have my Earth Mix.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And where she was up in Clarksville didn't quite have the right soil for her. So
Well, we appreciate Sarah making the trip out, and always good to see our many friends come by to visit with us at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. So, Sarah, great to thank you for coming by and making that little drive. It
is worth the drive from anywhere. Yeah,
it's a little bit of a drive out to Bates Nursery, but people tell us it's worthwhile. So we're going to try to continue to extol the virtues of that and encourage people to come out and see us. So I suspect we have more questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're correct. All right, here we go. We've got an herb question next. Who's ready?
me.
Ben's ready.
Everybody.
Josh is not
Herb.
ready.
Wake up, Josh. Come on.
Herbs.
How do you get dill to grow in abundance?
Let it go.
Put it in Earth Mix.
That's
kidding.
a great response there.
I mean, that should reseed easily. I think
Yeah.
most people have the opposite problem where they can't get rid of the dill once it gets going. But if you grow it and let it go to seed, like literally just let it go, let those seeds develop, and let them dry out on the plant, you will find it, within a square mile of that plant, you will find dill.
It's perennial. I did not know that. It will reseed for next year?
Annual, but
Okay.
it reseeds so vigorously. Yeah.
Just because something reseeds, Josh, doesn't mean it's perennial. It doesn't mean it's not perennial, but it's
Kinda sorta
many
perennial.
annuals are really heavy seed producers, and they will come back every year just through seed production. But that doesn't make it a perennial. That just is an annual that's reseeding. Well,
So it does it every year.
Ben, it might be worth helping Josh to understand, and maybe our listeners don't understand the distinction between something that simply comes back from seed every year and something that comes back on its own roots every year.
Sure. And I mean, we do get tender perennials that don't always come back, but they will readily reseed. And a lot of our annuals we see here actually don't reseed; they just die. But things, I mean, even like tomatoes, that is essentially an annual plant. But if you let those tomatoes ripen on the vine, they get pollinated, and those seeds are fertile. If you allow them to dry and overwinter, you'll have a whole new generation of plant. They'll just do that every year, and so that's an annual, meaning its life cycle is supposed to end at the end of every year. Now, if we go further south, a lot of our annuals become perennials. So a lot of that depends on where you live, whether it's considered truly perennial or tender perennial or just an annual. But yeah, it's really just the life cycle. If we think it's going to come back every year reliably, we'll label it as a perennial, like the Heuchera and the St. John's wort we mentioned earlier. And essentially all of our shrubs and trees, I guess you could call them perennial plants. We usually call those hardwoods. So, but yeah, annual perennial, it's a pretty good distinction. The nice thing is our greenhouse is usually laid out to separate these plants, so it makes kind of your decision a little easier if you want something to return every year.
I have one annual that comes back every year by reseeding itself, and I no longer have to plant it. And it's one of Austin's least favorite plants. And hopefully he's watching and I can talk about it. And he can't say anything back. So good morning, Austin, if you're out there. It is zinnias. I love them. They're great. Butterflies love them, and they make a great cut flower. And I haven't planted seeds in probably about 3 years just because I let them go to seed, and then they'll drop. And they grow everywhere. I mean, they grow all over my lawn, and I just mow some of them down. But that's a great one, and it just reseeds. So like Ben was talking about, it doesn't come back from the roots. It doesn't come back from an old stem, but it reseeds and spreads like wildfire. It is amazing.
We have perennial grasses too. I will say grasses are a little bit finicky with reseeding. We usually don't rely on those reseeding, but they can, but their success rate is so low. Like Mule Grass grown from seed, I think is, the success rate of those germinating is extremely low. But as a perennial plant, they do great. So yeah, it can really vary.
Mule Grass is rapidly approaching the time of year where it's coming into its own. It has about a 3-week window of absolute stunning show when it's planted in mass, which is the only way. You don't ever plant 1 or 2 or 3 of those. You need to plant a bunch of them, make a statement. It's kind of like having pink flamingos, except it's pink Mule Grass, and they do make a wonderful show as we get into the latter part of the fall season. But the rest of the year, they don't look like a whole lot, frankly. So it's one of those things you have to have the right spot for. If you have some large boulders in your landscape, they're great planted around that, or at any place where you can devote a large enough patch of planting of those to really make a statement, and they give you color when you're not getting it from really anything else.
Muley.
I'm thinking about putting pink flamingos in my muley patch this year, just to kind of take it to 11.
I didn't know you had a muley patch.
There's about 9 of them in a little bit of a funky clump, and with rock mulch, like a river rock. It just looks really nice.
So you'll need at least 5 flamingos of varying sizes, though. Ben.
Make it happen.
One that twirls.
My neighbors are going to love me.
Oh, of course.
I love them. Are we ready for another question?
You could say you've been flocked over. Is that how they used to do that, David?
All right, here we go. Next question. Will large summer ferns survive winter in my garage till next summer, or are they annuals? So you're probably asking about Boston ferns, Kimberly queens. We do sell them as annuals here at our nursery in Tennessee, but you can overwinter them in a garage. You can keep them inside as a house plant if you want to try to keep it green and alive, not going dormant through the winter. Now know that it might be a lot of work.
Put the vacuum cleaner away.
It's going to shed everywhere. You're going to be sweeping or vacuuming up constantly. So I would suggest putting it in your garage if you have one, letting it go dormant. You want it to stay above mid 40s if possible, but honestly, it could probably drop below that. But it doesn't need light. You can cut it back, or you can leave it, leave all those fronds going wild if you want. But you don't really need to water it, maybe every so often. Just don't let it completely dry out so it's like, a big pile of dust in the pot. But just, put it in there, let it go dormant. And then once it warms up in the spring, bring it out, water it. You can fertilize it and it'll flush back out. But they are pretty easy to overwinter. They're not necessarily throwaway plants. So if you want to save a little bit of money year to year, that is an option with those. Yeah.
Very
There
nice.
we
I
go.
mean,
I was
So you
like,
just got
anyone
to play
else?
your cards
No.
right. Yeah.
My mom asked that question. That's all.
Really?
Yes.
Good morning, Tyler's mom.
Hi, Mom.
I hope she's
So
watching.
many
She might
shout-outs
catch
this
the later
morning.
broadcast.
Well, good afternoon, Tyler's mom, if you're tuning in later. Okay, so next question. What are y'all's favorite plants for full sun mixed border?
Full sun mixed border. We've got catmint over there. We mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's becoming a really popular border plant with the dwarf varieties that only get 1 to 2 feet and deer resistant and super sun and heat tolerant. Awesome border plant for the sun.
I just planted some this year.
We got another
And
border
your
plant
cats
over here,
will
too.
love you for it.
Tyler, you said that so quietly.
Sorry, I was
Got another one.
mumbling to myself. I got what you need right over here.
Hey, baby.
Right here.
I'm scared now.
Not that creepy. Okay.
Uh,
So Black-Eyed Susan or Rudbeckia, I think, is a great border plant.
That's
It's
another one of Austin's
upright.
favorites, right?
It is, yeah. Austin hates it. But you
Yeah.
know what? I sent a photo of mine, which I don't have here, but maybe next week. It's amazing. I planted it in a clump, and it has just taken over. And it's actually a border plant around. I had an above ground pool that I hated and I got rid of. So it was a sand pit. I put some flat stones in it. I made a big fire pit space. And one of my border plants is Rudbeckia. It's around the edges. It looks amazing. It's gorgeous. So yeah, there's another plant you don't like, Austin, that we've talked about this morning.
It can reseed
Yeah. It's like a
very
reseeding
well.
perennial.
Oh, mine
so
reseeds like crazy.
beware of that. If you want it to spread to other places, might be the perfect plant.
Mine stays, it does reseed itself, but it doesn't take over. I have it in 3 different beds. It stays pretty contained. I haven't had a problem with it spreading too far. It stays, they stay amongst themselves. They like to stay with their friends as they grow. Lantana is one of my favorite.
Now, those ornamental peppers out in front of what you got there are gorgeous in a border application, too.
Yeah.
You just saw my hand. Let's try this again.
Early
There we
fall
go.
planting,
There
I
we go.
think,
There it
and
is.
they'll stick around through the winter. Pretty good.
Tyler's getting wild with camera.
I was trying to follow your hand. You were gesturing
just
wildly.
moving so fast. That jazz hand just going wild.
We don't have allium. That's one of my favorites for borders.
Oh, that's
And
one
that
of
is one of
Austin's.
Austin's favorites. We know
So-
all of Austin's favorites. and
Throw you a
least
bone there,
favorites.
Austin. But allium, deer resistant, and then it's got that wonderful, tough little purple allium bloom that tends to be a pretty good late summer bloomer. And it's just got such a nice dark green.
It's like sticking a softball on the end of a big green stem.
So fancy.
A little purple softball.
Yeah, that is a good one. I haven't grown that before, but I might go with that.
They're just so easy.
They're low.
Oh,
They're low maintenance or low growing.
Low growing and low maintenance. Both.
There you go.
Low.
Best of both worlds.
Oh, I've used canna this year as well in my side beds. Sorry.
Tyler,
I have some
Sorry.
mixed feelings about that.
There you are.
It's a lot to wrestle the camera over here to get to me. So when I talk, I'm kind of like doing myself in. But yes,
Well,
I've used
we want you to be visible as well.
I've used red canna for the past couple of years in my backyard along my neighbor's fence, and I like the height of the red canna. You could even do something like spilling below it. Like you could do this catmint underneath it, and it wouldn't even touch it in terms of height.
I've got canna with St. John's wort underneath it, and it looks amazing. Though my canna has taken over, and I'm mad at it now.
it can get away from
Oh
you. can't-
gosh.
Oh, gosh.
7 years later, I started with one plant, like a little gallon pot, and now it's probably in a 5x5 area and keeps going.
And-
So
If you've got fertile soil and adequate sunlight, that's one of the downsides to cannas is that they're vigorous growers. You do need to probably every year at least dig around the the margins of the bed area that they're growing in and remove the tubers so that you can either share them with others or just keep them in check, because they'll get really carried away on you. My grandmother used to dig them up probably every other year when she would have them planted, and that would keep them in check. They really flower better if they're thinned. They can get so thick that the flowering becomes more sparse and less prolific and less long lasting. So if you'll dig them up and thin them, Josh, I know you probably don't have any at home. But
No.
that's something in the future.
Well, if you
That's
have
the way-
Bermuda lawn in particular, they can turn into a ghetto, and because they'll get so intertwined together, and it's impossible. Really, they can. We had a neighbor that had them that just, it looked like caca, as it were.
Oh. Well, when is the right time to dig them up and separate
3:30.
them? Oh, there it is.
It's 3:30.
3:30.
Hey, we got a question here from the. Sorry, my brain is just woo.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. We got a
There he
question
is.
from Janice on the Bates Facebook page. We're in Columbia, and yesterday's storm had an exceptionally large impact on trees. Quite a few broken in half or large branches down. Is there something
Bradford
we can,
pears?
especially the
Not
Bradfords?
nice, Josh.
But
Yes, it is.
But
It's great.
not to anybody who suffered any damage because of
No,
it.
hoping no one was hurt.
Is there something we can put on the exposed new wood to protect from insects?
Don't generally.
It's cosmetic more
yeah.
than anything else.
And we don't want to seal that wound. That's almost like keeping a Band-Aid on for too long. It's just going to cause more issues. The tree paint and stuff, I really don't think it's going to do a lot to a big wound. Usually we like to see that wound kind of be exposed and be dry so that the tree can heal it up on its own.
So at minimum, let it heal and
Let it
scar
heal.
over before you put
clean off
anything on
any
it.
snaggle branches, or I don't know what anything that's rough.
Snaggle
I like
branches.
that.
Snaggle
term.
branches.
Get those snaggle branches out of here.
You don't want any danglers.
Yeah, clean up the cut.
Technical terms. Snaggle branch.
The danglers and the snaggle branches.
Well,
Any-
and
any
one of the things
lingons.
about when you make a nice clean cut is that it really reduces the amount of areas that something can vector and get into it. Some kind of you greatly reduce the surface area of where a pathogen or maybe some kind of an insect might get in there. Another, if it's not really large branch and you want it to simply look better, you don't like this bright white looking kind of a cut on there, is put on there what we used to just call nursery medicine. That's like rub dirt onto it.
Yep.
And it makes it significantly less bright, and over time as the heals, the dirt will wash away, and
Right. Yeah.
it works pretty well, and it's available right at your feet.
Yeah. Yep. The tree knows how to heal, so just help it out a little bit.
Unless it's a Bradford, then take
Unless
the
it's a
other
Bradford
one.
pear.
Yeah, then take the other half down.
Which that'll probably sucker from the ground. So
Oh,
you
yes.
probably need to get it removed if it is.
Dead
Hey,
Bradford
let's
it
talk
out.
for just a moment about where we're broadcasting from today, as we do every Saturday, and that's Bates Nursery and Garden Center here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're always thrilled to have everyone tune in, whether it's live on Saturdays or anytime during the week. We thank you for that, and when you are in the area, we invite you to come out and see us. We have a selection of plant material that is really unrivaled. Certainly, perhaps anywhere. We really go to the four corners of the nation to be able to bring in the most diverse selection of plants that really do well in our area. And more than just having this diverse selection of plants, and I'm including in plants, trees, shrubs, ground covers, edible landscapes, native plants, perennials, doesn't matter what you're talking about. And of course, if you over into Caroline's area, extensive selection of tropicals.
Amazing.
You need to
department.
come see to appreciate. And this week, we've got a special thing going on as we are winding down our season. Of course, we are offering a lot of great things, 20% off on all plants. Now, that does exclude the tropicals, and it does exclude Japanese maples, but
And
you
house
also
plants.
can get, and yes, tropicals and houseplants, which I consider to be synonymous,
We're
but not
making the
everybody
distinction.
recognizes that. So, but that's true. So, but what
It's
you
as
can
broad
get
as it is deep.
all containers are 20% off. And
All the pots
when
are
I say
20% off?
containers, I'm talking about pottery. Make sure we're synonyms covered here, but that's everything you grow plants in, be it for indoor or outdoor use. And to go with that, Proganics I for indoor and Proganics O for outdoor plants are all available at 20% off. So come on out and see us. Check that out at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where I do a weekly newsletter. This week I wrote about there's a lot of cliches. Josh, you're sporting your Titan shirt today, and we're talk about a lot of cliches. If you're a football fan at all, you want to hit pay dirt when you are
That doesn't
watching
have anything
football.
to do with football.
And it should be
that's
a
gold
chip shot.
digging. Huh?
Josh, it should be, whenever you're marching down the field at your house, it's all about on where the ball is placed so
Yes.
that you know what to do. So, if you want to read the entire article I have on the cliche clarity, well, just go over here to website at batesnursery.com, and you can simply click right on the
That's why they
green
play the game. Yeah.
screen there, and there it is, and all of the various specials we've got going on today, as well as a fairly exhaustive and lengthy list of cliches. Want to remind you, we're coming down to the final week here on voting for Best of Nashville in the Nashville scene. We certainly would appreciate your vote at Bates Nursery and Garden Center for both Best Nursery and Garden Center and additionally for the Best Local Blog, which is this newsletter I've been referencing. So
Yes.
I've placed second the last 2 years in a row, and I'm hoping that perhaps might somehow squeak out a first place vote. You never know. So anyway, come see us at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We are conveniently located 1 mile north of Briley Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike, which is just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville. No matter where you're coming from, I assure you it is worth the drive. We have an extensive staff has a lot of expertise to help answer all your questions. We talk about a lot of answers on the show here, and you can get specific information about all the things with regard to your specific garden here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. Come see us. Our 90th anniversary, our Emerald anniversary indeed, beautifying Nashville since 1932. Yep. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, and thank you for giving us a couple of minutes to talk about that and about where we are and why we're here.
And here we are.
And there we are.
And there we go.
Just
I
brought
don't
us
know how to be for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people ask me when pottery is going to go on sale. So now's the time to get out here, especially before I do inventory. Come buy all of those pots.
And she gets the
You
one
have
she
one
wants
week.
first. That's what
You have 1 week.
Less than
That's
a
right.
week.
The sale goes through Thursday, so yep, you need to get on out here.
We
That's
have
the
some
big
great
pots and the little
it's
pots.
It's the big pots, it's the little pots, it's the plastic pots, it's the fancy pots, it's the fiber clay. It's all of them. And I have touched each and every one of the pieces of pottery here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, and they're
Yes.
all fantastic. And come out and get them.
It's the saucers too that go with them. The little things.
You know what? I'm not going to say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, there we go.
It falls under pottery.
Didn't want to be the one to answer the question wrong. Speaking of questions, we have 2 left.
Okay.
Here we go. Are we ready?
Okay.
What are some full sun ground cover options? Ooh. Ben?
Full sun ground cover options. We usually, I'll put it on a spectrum from how aggressively you want to cover the ground and how less aggressive you want to cover the ground. We usually try to dissuade people from the extremely aggressive ground covers. Winter creeper, I'm looking at you. But you can plant euonymus. I mean, if you have a horrible erosion problem on a large hill, it will take over.
Is that the Dr. Seuss plant, David?
Dr.
It's not that.
Euonymus coloratus?
It's purple leaf winter creeper, which you may also know it by. One of the places that it can be used quite effectively and it's easy to manage is near a driveway between where you've got a lot of hot pavement and that kind of things. It's something that contains it naturally, where you don't want to plant it, say, on the back side of the house and you live in a woodland area. But it can be quite invasive. It can move into those areas. You do not want to do that. So the real thing to keep in mind when you're talking about ground covers and many things that might be considered invasive is where you place them and understand how they grow and what they do before you plant them there, so that you can be assured of making a choice that's going to be manageable in the long term.
Absolutely. And I mean, we have minimally invasive ground covers, which are still beautiful. Like right now, Sedum is really being colorful, and there's a lot of low-lying sedums, which typically are just going to spread out of radially out of where they are. We do have things such as ajuga, which may need a little bit of shade, but ajuga is a slow, steppable spreader. Mondo grass.
I like St. John's wort. It's another good one.
Yes.
There are low-growing types of those that really give you a great color, and they'll stay quite low, and they're not terribly unmanageable. They're something that you can keep within bounds.
Aaron's beard comes to mind as a good variety.
And, you may have to go in every few years and maybe whack it down with the lawnmower. Sometimes St. John's wort can get a little bit of a stem on it. It almost wants to become a shrub. But as far as how tough it is and how beautiful it is, I think that's a great one.
And we have some in front of you guys.
You mentioned one magic phrase there, Ben, with regard to ground cover beds, and it's a tool that people don't often recognize as they're having it in their arsenal, is to physically take the lawnmower and put it on the highest setting and mow those bed areas down. It really gives you a nice, even look to it. And so long as you do it at the right time of year, you're going to have when the new growth flushes back out, you're really going to have a nice look. I do it to my monkey grass, my liripe, every year, and it really, in the case of those, they are a perennial. They get dead-looking tops on them after the winter. It cleans all that off, and the new growth all emerges thereafter, Josh, and they look nice the rest of the growing season.
There's a great video of you on the internet doing that. We've
Oh,
got it on our Instagram page.
Classic.
Mowing the monkey grass.
Mowing the monkey grass.
That's low maintenance right there. And instead of pulling weeds, it outcompetes the weeds, and you just give it a good trim once a year.
Yeah, and if you have a bagger attachment for your mower, it's even better because you picks all the clippings up, and you don't even have to do any raking or anything.
Right.
It's really the bomb. So consider that.
Yeah, vinca. That's the one that's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's a vine, but vinca is such a small vine that you could hit it with a weed eater mower and keep it extremely low.
Yeah, and it does great in a more shady area, and it grows slow enough where that it would take it a long time to ever be an invasive issue. So it's a really good plant. Nice color in the early spring where you get some little good-looking orchid and lavender-colored flowers on it. There are some white cultivars also.
I also greatly enjoy. Sorry, switching myself over here.
Come on, Tom.
I greatly enjoy Turkish Sedum as a full sun ground cover. It spreads really well. It's kind of small. I feel like you could keep it managed if you put in a small border, maybe where you had it. But I also think it would be great along like a garden pathway around some stones. Looks great in my opinion.
They like it sunny and dry.
Yep.
And if you want something that's going to take over that some people hate, Austin, Creeping Jenny. I have that in some of my beds.
Yep.
It does take over, and it's hard to, it can be hard to control, but I love the look of it. It grows, almost flat. It takes over. It grows between rocks. You can step on it. You can pull it up. It comes right back. Your dogs can destroy it, and it's not going to kill it. It's just going to, in a week, look fine again. So if you're looking for something that's going to really take over and be low maintenance and really easy, that's a good one. All right, we got
Yeah,
one more question
Okay.
before we get to.
One more thing, Caroline, before we move on, is that the final note on ground covers is that there's always this difficulty with how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take it to cover. And the faster growing things are generally going to be a cheaper way to do it, but you're going to wind up fighting them in the long run. So it's worth taking some time to talk to Ben or any of our other landscape professionals out on the lot to be able to gain a full understanding as to what is ultimately going to be expected. It might be great in the short term to get fast coverage, but you might be better off to delay that gratification just a little bit and use something that grows a bit slower so that 5 or 10 years down the line,
You're
you've
not
got
fighting
something to manage and not something that's overgrowing the whole area.
Very good.
So, final thoughts.
All right, last question. I propagated a philodendron in water. Is it okay to plant it in soil now? It kind of depends on how long it's been in there and how long the roots are. But generally, you want the roots to be at least 1 inch long. So when I propagate philodendron, you have that node that you use to put it in the water where you find that spot to get it in the water to grow out of. That root will start to grow longer, and then I wait until those secondary roots start growing off of that main root before I plant it in soil. And then once you plant it in the soil, sometimes it can take 3 weeks, sometimes it can take 3 months. It might take a little while to really get those roots going. But 1 to 2 inches long, secondary roots, go ahead and plant it in some moist soil, water it thoroughly. If you don't water it, if you put it in dry soil, it's going to shock the plant. Like we were talking about with transplanting that tulip poplar earlier, you don't want to let those roots go dry. So keep it wet, keep it in some indirect sun, and it should get going pretty quickly, and you'll have your new plant. So, yay, we answered
Caroline,
all the
very cool.
questions.
Explain to our listeners what a node is. Some people might not understand what you're talking about.
So a node is basically like where a leaf will come out sometimes, especially with philodendron, you'll notice what looks like a root. And it'll be aerial roots as that plant matures if you don't cut it and control it, which you don't have to do. And they'll get really long. They look, with philodendron, monstera, they look like tentacles almost. So, but the node is the spot where it's starting to push out. So you'll notice the stem, and then there'll be like a little bump that starts to grow. Oh. That's the node. So when you propagate philodendron, pothos, a lot of other types of plants, you want to get at least one of those, if not about 3 in the water, because that's where it's going to push the roots from. So normally with a lot of house plants, when you're propagating them, people ask if I can just take a leaf off of it and prop from that. Normally not. It's going to do a lot better from a stem cutting that has at least 1 node on it. So great
Very
question.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Hey, y'all want to see some vacation slides?
Yes.
Oh my
Let's
God.
go. Let's do it.
Yeah. Remember the old slideshows, David, that you had to sit through? This was my view. Okay, folks. I mean, if you can see them on the big screen there.
Stand by.
Stand by. Stand by.
I'm just a little bit behind everybody.
Wow.
Oh.
That's gorgeous.
That was sitting on the back porch of the place and I understand that Ben used to live out here in this area as well. That is the western side of the Grand Teton Range, and was very lucky to see that. This is the east side of the Teton Range, directly on the other side. I was hoping to see something here. Oh, wait a minute. Snap. Click on the right arrow there, David. Let's see. Another view of the Tetons. I was looking at as the float guide was telling us, that was a moraine that was a glacier scraped. So even in this area that is known for everything that grows, they need some earth mix out there. I really was trying to sell them on it out there, David.
I did see the hollyhock.
Elevation. What is the elevation, Josh, where you're standing as opposed to where the mountains in the background are?
Yeah,
Probably
6,500, 6,800 feet, I would think.
12 to 13 usually. So.
I think the Grand Teton was 13,800 and something feet tall.
You begin to see even the conifers are starting to look a little thin looking. You know, you're not at the tree line, certainly. It's obvious the evidence of trees indicates you're below it, but they begin to change their look as the altitude continues to rise.
Absolutely beautiful conifers out there. Now, as the Grand Teton Peak, the float guide was telling us that he's quite the fisherman and quite the hiker. Of course, he said he was out there at a campsite at a wedding below Camp Teton, and Conrad Anker, who is one of the 7 summits people in the world. He's climbed all the 7 tallest mountains on the planet, climbed that 13,800 and something foot mountain in less than 3 hours. That's up and down. That's amazing to think about what they do.
Yeah, well, the good news is he's only 7 ahead of me.
Yeah, oh, really? 7? You've been on the highest one?
We'll probably never get greater than that.
Grand Prismatic Pool. This is in Yellowstone National Park, and folks, you really need to go and see another one of the thermal features, the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River. I think this was probably my favorite spot, but you can look and see at the soil that's in there. It doesn't look particularly rich, and there was it was a little rocky.
Oh, yeah.
High pH, I understand as well. This is the Great Abyss Pool, and little known fact there was a human foot floated to the top of the Grand Abyss Pool later the day that we were there. And
hey, what a happy note to end on, Joe.
well, I mean, it's just one of those things. What the rule? Don't mess around. The sign says don't get in there. You won't fall in. It's like 80 feet deep or something crazy like that. And probably been floating and cooking for about 4 months. And then the foot came up. And the only reason the foot came up is because it was attached to something, a Nike or a Converse or something.
I think the only reason the foot came up is because Josh talked about it.
Could be. Now there.
Yes, I think you are right.
He brought it up.
But
hey, if we could return
Grand
back
Teton.
to our
regular show, beautiful view, beautiful plants, great garden centers out there. We did visit a couple.
Yeah, we love your all of your vacation shots, Josh.
That's not all of them. I can bring some more back next week.
I'm quite sure of that. But
Okay.
hey, thanks to everyone for tuning in this week. We really appreciate the questions. Really appreciate that. We appreciate all of your participation and your interest that you have in what we're doing here.
Yes.
And,
Our YouTube viewers, we see you.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
Share.
And remember that I'm monitoring the chat out there, so if you've ever had a question, you can submit it on that end of things as well.
Yeah, and Kevin Killen, who asked the question about cutting down the Bradford pears, he hadn't listened to us or viewed us since we were on 99.7, David, and I asked him why and showed him how to do it, and so he's back with us as well. Thank you,
Glad to have
Kevin,
you
for
back.
joining. Yeah. So,
Yes.
hey, for everybody here at the Green Room, we do thank you for coming in. We're going to come back next Saturday morning for another at-home show. We'll see you then.